Captain Sarah Chen had always been invisible in the right ways and visible in all the wrong ones. At 28, she stood barely 5 feet 4 inches tall, with quiet brown eyes that seemed to absorb everything while revealing nothing. Her colleagues at Nellis Air Force Base knew her as the maintenance officer who never missed a detail, the one who could diagnose engine problems by sound alone, and the woman who somehow always had grease under her perfectly trimmed nails despite her spotless uniform. What they didn't know was that Sarah had logged more simulator hours than most active pilots. What they couldn't see was the way her pulse quickened every time an F-22 Raptor screamed overhead. What they never suspected was that the quiet maintenance officer had graduated top of her class from the Air Force Academy with a degree in aeronautical engineering and had originally been selected for pilot training before a bureaucratic error and family emergency had derailed her dreams. The morning of March 15 started like any other at Nellis. Sarah arrived at 0500 hours, her coffee still steaming in the desert pre-dawn chill. The hangar buzzed with its usual symphony of mechanical sounds, hydraulic lifts hissing, impact wrenches chattering, and the low hum of diagnostic equipment. She moved through her domain with practiced efficiency, checking maintenance logs and coordinating with her team of 12 technicians. Captain Chen called out Staff Sergeant Rodriguez from beneath the belly of an F-22. "We've got an unusual vibration in the port engine on Raptor 07-4143. Nothing shows up on diagnostics, but something doesn't feel right." Sarah grabbed her tablet and walked over, her boots echoing against the polished concrete floor. She knelt beside Rodriguez, listening as he described the subtle irregularity he'd detected during routine checks. This was what Sarah loved about her team, they trusted their instincts as much as their instruments. "Pull the engine cover," she said, rolling up her sleeves. "Let's take a look." As they worked, Sarah's mind wandered to the letter she kept locked in her desk drawer. It was from her younger brother, David, written just before his deployment to Afghanistan 3 years ago. In it, he'd told her how proud he was that she was going to be a pilot, how he'd bragged to his Marine buddies that his sister was going to fly the most advanced fighter jet in the world. David never made it home to learn that Sarah had never made it to pilot training. The vibration Rodriguez had detected turned out to be a tiny crack in a mounting bracket, something that could have been catastrophic if left unchecked. Sarah documented the finding and ordered the replacement part, adding another entry to her meticulous maintenance logs. Her attention to detail had prevented 3 potential accidents in the past 2 years, though the pilots who benefited from her vigilance rarely knew her name. By 1400 hours, the spring sun had turned the Nevada desert into a shimmering furnace. Sarah was reviewing flight schedules in her office when the alarm started blaring. The distinctive pattern made her blood run cold. It was the emergency scramble signal. Through her window, she could see pilots sprinting toward their aircraft while ground crews moved with practiced urgency. Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Hawk Johnson, the squadron's commanding officer, burst into her office without knocking. His face was grim, sweat already beading on his forehead despite the air conditioning. "Chen, we have a situation," he said, his voice tight with controlled tension. "How many birds do we have flight ready right now?" Sarah pulled up her maintenance database without hesitation. 6 F-22s are fully operational, sir. 2 more will be ready in 40 minutes if you need them. "We need every plane we can get airborne," Hawk said, running a hand through his graying hair. "We've got multiple bogies approaching restricted airspace over the Nevada test site. Could be a probe, could be something worse. Washington's breathing down my neck, and I need pilots in the air now." Sarah's heart hammered as she watched the controlled chaos through her window. Pilots were climbing into cockpits, ground crews were pulling chocks, and fuel trucks were racing between aircraft. But she noticed something that made her stomach drop. "Sir," she said carefully, "I count only 5 pilots heading to aircraft. Major Williams is still in the hospital with that broken leg from last week's training accident." Hawk's jaw tightened. "We've got Captain Martinez flying in from Hickam, but he's still 3 hours out. Lieutenant Foster is dealing with a family emergency in Colorado. That leaves us 1 pilot short for a full response." Sarah felt a familiar ache in her chest, the same feeling she'd had watching other people live her dreams for the past 7 years. But this wasn't about dreams anymore. This was about national security, about the mission, about protecting something bigger than her own disappointments. "Sir," she said, her voice steady despite the hurricane of emotions swirling inside her, "what about the civilian contractor pilots? Or the test pilot school?" "Already checked. Everyone who can fly is either already assigned or too far away." Hawk looked at his watch. "We need that 6th bird in the air, Chen. The situation is escalating, and 5 fighters might not be enough. Sarah stared at her computer screen, seeing not maintenance schedules but opportunity. Her flight certification was still valid, she'd maintained it privately, flying civilian aircraft on weekends and taking recertification tests every year like a ritual of hope she'd never been able to abandon. "Sir, I need to tell you something," she said, standing up slowly. The words felt foreign in her mouth, as if she was speaking a language she'd forgotten how to use. "I'm a pilot." Hawk stopped mid-pace and turned to stare at her. "What did you say?" "I'm a qualified pilot, sir. I was originally selected for pilot training out of the academy. I have my commercial license, instrument rating, and I've maintained my flight certification. I know the F-22 systems better than anyone on this base." For a moment, the only sound in the office was the distant roar of engines starting up outside. Hawk's eyes narrowed as he processed what she'd said, his mind clearly racing through possibilities and regulations. "Chen, are you telling me that for the past 5 years, I've had a qualified pilot working in my maintenance section?" "Yes, sir." Sarah's voice didn't waver, though her hands trembled slightly at her sides. "Due to a paperwork error and family circumstances, I was reassigned to maintenance instead of pilot training. I never corrected the record because by the time I could have, I thought I'd missed my chance." Hawk was quiet for a long moment, studying her face as if seeing her for the first time. Outside, the first F-22 was already taxiing toward the runway, its angular profile cutting through the heat waves rising from the tarmac. "How many simulator hours do you have on the F-22?" he asked finally. "Approximately 400 hours, sir. I've been running diagnostics and system checks that require simulator time. I know every system, every limitation, every emergency procedure." "This is insane," Hawk muttered, but Sarah could see the wheels turning in his head. "Even if you're qualified, you haven't been through the specific training protocols, you don't know our tactical procedures, and, sir," Sarah interrupted, something she'd never done in 5 years of service. "I've been writing those protocols. I've been training your pilots on system modifications. I know this aircraft better than anyone except maybe the engineers who built it." Through the window, they could see the second F-22 starting its takeoff roll, its twin engines creating a thunderous roar that vibrated through the building. Time was running out, and Sarah could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on both of them. Hawk picked up his radio. "Tower, this is Hawk. I need 5 minutes before we launch the remaining aircraft." "Copy, Hawk. Be advised, the situation is developing rapidly. Washington is asking for our ETA." Sarah watched Hawk's face as he weighed an impossible decision. She knew what she was asking, not just for herself, but for him. If something went wrong, his career would be over. If she failed, people could die. "Chen," he said finally, his voice heavy with the burden of command, "if I put you in that cockpit, you're not just representing yourself. You're carrying the lives of everyone depending on this mission." "I understand, sir. And if you're wrong about your abilities, if you've overestimated what you can do, then I'll live with the consequences," Sarah said firmly. "But, sir, I'm not wrong. I've been preparing for this moment my entire adult life, even when I thought it would never come." Hawk looked out at the remaining F-22s, their sleek forms representing billions of dollars of technology and, more importantly, America's ability to defend itself. He thought about the unknown aircraft approaching restricted airspace, about the intelligence reports that had been flooding in all morning, about the weight of command that sometimes required impossible decisions. "Get to the equipment room," he said finally. "Draw a flight suit and helmet. I'll meet you at aircraft 07-4139 in 10 minutes. Sarah felt her legs go weak with a mixture of terror and exhilaration. "Sir, I'm either making the best decision of my career or ending it," Hawk said, already heading for the door. "Don't make me regret this, Chen." As the door closed behind him, Sarah stood alone in her office for a moment, staring at the maintenance schedules that had defined her life for so many years. On her desk, beside her computer, sat a small framed photo of her brother David in his Marine uniform, smiling broadly at the camera. She picked it up and whispered, "Watch me fly, little brother." The equipment room was a chaos of activity as pilots grabbed gear and ground crews restocked emergency supplies. Sarah moved through it like a woman in a dream, pulling on a flight suit that felt both foreign and familiar. The fabric was different from her maintenance uniform, heavier, more technical, designed to keep her alive in conditions that would kill an unprotected human. Staff Sergeant Martinez, who had worked with Sarah for 3 years, did a double-take as she emerged from the changing area. "Captain? What are you?" "Long story, Sergeant," Sarah said, adjusting the fit of her harness. "I need a helmet and life support equipment. Standard combat configuration." Martinez's eyes widened, but he moved quickly to fulfill the request. Military training kicked in, overriding his confusion. When Captain Chen gave an order, you followed it, even if it made no sense. The helmet fit perfectly, its advanced display systems coming online as Sarah activated the power. Through the visor, she could see data overlays and targeting information that most people would find overwhelming. To Sarah, it was like coming home. Walking across the tarmac toward the F-22, Sarah felt the desert heat through her flight suit and the weight of every eye watching her. Word had spread quickly through the base that the maintenance officer was suiting up for combat, and ground crews paused in their work to stare. The F-22 Raptor sat waiting for her like a crouched predator, its angular surfaces designed to slip through radar like a ghost. Sarah had touched every inch of this aircraft during maintenance, had diagnosed its problems and celebrated its successes, but she had never seen it from this angle, from the perspective of someone who was about to become part of it. Lieutenant Colonel Johnson was waiting beside the aircraft with Chief Master Sergeant Williams, the senior enlisted man on the base. Both men looked grim but determined. "Chen," Hawk said as she approached, "Chief Williams is going to do your pre-flight briefing. We don't have time for the full protocol, but he'll cover the essentials." Chief Williams was a 30-year veteran who had seen everything the Air Force had to offer. He looked Sarah up and down with the calculating gaze of someone who had watched countless pilots climb into cockpits, some never to return. "Captain," he said, his voice gravelly from decades of shouting over jet engines, "I'm going to ask you one time, and I want a straight answer. Are you ready for this?" Sarah met his eyes without flinching. "Chief, I've been ready for this since I was 18 years old." Williams nodded slowly. "Then, let's get you airborne." The pre-flight briefing was necessarily brief but comprehensive. Williams covered the mission parameters, communication protocols, and emergency procedures with the efficiency of someone who had done this thousands of times. Sarah absorbed every word, her mind cataloging information and cross-referencing it with her theoretical knowledge. "Your call sign for this mission is Ghost 6, Williams said finally. "You'll be flying wingman to Major Patterson in Ghost 5. He's got 12 years in the Raptor and he'll keep you oriented." Sarah nodded, feeling the weight of the moment settling on her shoulders like a physical presence. In a few minutes, she would be flying the most advanced fighter aircraft in the world, defending her country's airspace against an unknown threat. As she climbed the ladder to the cockpit, Sarah paused for a moment to look back at the base spread out below her. She could see her office window, where maintenance schedules still waited to be updated. She could see the hangar where her team was probably wondering where their captain had disappeared to. She could see the life she had built around the edges of her dreams. Then, she settled into the ejection seat and felt the F-22 come alive around her. Systems activated with subtle hums and clicks, displays flickered to life, and the aircraft seemed to recognize its new pilot. Sarah's hands moved across the controls with the confidence born of thousands of hours of study and simulation, each switch and button exactly where she expected it to be. "Ghost 6, this is Tower," came the voice in her headphones. "You are cleared for engine start." "Tower, Ghost 6 copies. Beginning engine start sequence." The twin engines spooled up with a sound like controlled thunder, their combined 40,000 pounds of thrust waiting to carry her into the sky. Sarah ran through her final checks, her movements precise and economical. "Ghost 5, Ghost 6, she called to her wingman. "Ready for takeoff." "Copy, Ghost 6, came Major Patterson's voice. "Stay tight on my wing. We'll take this nice and easy until you get your bearings." Sarah almost smiled at that. Patterson had no idea that she had been studying his flying techniques for years, analyzing his approach patterns and tactical decisions through maintenance logs and post-flight reports. In many ways, she knew his flying style better than he did. "Ghost Flight, this is Tower. You are cleared for takeoff. Vector 045, climb to Angels 20. Contact departure control on 327.4. Sarah's heart pounded as she felt the F-22 surge forward, its massive engines pushing her back into her seat with tremendous force. The runway rushed beneath her, and then, suddenly, she was airborne, climbing into the brilliant Nevada sky with a freedom she had dreamed about for so many years. Below her, the base grew smaller until it was just another pattern in the vast desert landscape. Ahead of her lay the unknown, unidentified aircraft, potential threats, and the chance to finally prove that Captain Sarah Chen was much more than a maintenance officer. As she leveled off at 20,000 feet and felt the Raptor settle into its element, Sarah allowed herself one moment of pure joy. She was flying. After 7 years of watching from the ground, she was finally where she belonged. Ghost 6, how are you doing over there? Patterson's voice cut through her reverie. Ghost 5, this is Ghost 6, Sarah replied, her voice steady and professional. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. 20 minutes into the flight, Sarah's initial exhilaration had settled into focused concentration. The F-22 responded to her touch like it was reading her mind, every control input translated into precise movement through the thin air at altitude. Major Patterson had been testing her abilities with increasingly complex maneuvers, and Sarah had matched everyone without hesitation. Ghost 6, your flying is impressive, Patterson radioed, genuine surprise evident in his voice. Where did you train? Various places over the years, Ghost 5, Sarah replied diplomatically, not wanting to explain her unconventional background while they were approaching a potential combat situation. The radio crackled with an update from ground control. Ghost Flight, be advised we now have 6 bogies on scope, bearing 320 degrees, range 180 miles and closing. Speed indicates Mach 1.2. Unknown aircraft types. Sarah felt her pulse quicken as she switched her radar to long-range scanning mode. The contacts appeared on her display as amber symbols, still too far away to identify but clearly real and moving with purpose toward restricted airspace. Ghost Flight, this is Overwatch, came a new voice, the airborne command and control aircraft that was coordinating the response. We're seeing unusual flight patterns from the unknown contacts. They appear to be probing our response time and capabilities. Major Patterson's voice became more serious. Copy, Overwatch. Ghost Flight is weapons tight pending further orders. Sarah's mind raced as she absorbed the tactical situation. 6 unknown aircraft were approaching one of America's most sensitive military installations, home to classified aircraft and weapons testing. The fact that they were moving in formation suggested military discipline, but no allied nation had filed flight plans for this airspace. As they flew northwest toward the intercept point, Sarah found herself thinking about her brother David again. He had died defending a forward operating base in Afghanistan when insurgents had overwhelmed their position. The Marines had held long enough for reinforcements to arrive, saving dozens of civilian contractors, but David had paid the ultimate price. Sarah had never gotten the chance to serve her country in combat like he had, never had the opportunity to put her life on the line for something greater than herself. Today might be different. Ghost 6, Patterson called, tighten up your formation. We're approaching the intercept zone. Sarah smoothly adjusted her position, the F-22 sliding through the air like it was designed to fly in close formation. Through her canopy, she could see Patterson's aircraft just 50 feet away, its angular surfaces creating strange shadows in the bright desert sun. Ghost Flight, this is Overwatch. Contacts now bearing 315 degrees, range 80 miles. We're getting intermittent radar returns suggesting possible stealth characteristics. Sarah's blood chilled. Stealth aircraft meant advanced technology, which meant either a friendly nation testing new capabilities without proper notification, or a hostile force with equipment far more sophisticated than intelligence estimates had suggested. Ghost 5, Ghost 6, she radioed to Patterson, recommend we split formation for better coverage. I'll take high CAP while you maintain current altitude for intercept. Patterson hesitated for a moment. The suggestion was tactically sound, but Sarah was supposed to be the inexperienced wingman following his lead. Negative, Ghost 6. Maintain current formation until we have visual contact. Sarah bit back her frustration. She understood Patterson's caution, he didn't know her capabilities and was responsible for her safety. But her tactical training was screaming that they were vulnerable flying this close together against multiple unknown contacts. The next few minutes passed in tense silence as the two formations converged. Sarah ran through her mental checklist of air-to-air combat procedures, weapon systems status, and escape maneuvers. Her theoretical knowledge was extensive, but she had never fired a shot in anger, never faced a real enemy who was trying to kill her. Ghost Flight, we have visual contact, Patterson announced suddenly. 6 aircraft, bearing 310 degrees, 10 miles and closing. Jesus Christ, what are those things? Sarah looked in the indicated direction and felt her stomach drop. The approaching aircraft were unlike anything in her recognition training. They had swept wings and angular fuselages that suggested stealth technology, but the configuration was wrong for any known American or Allied aircraft. Overwatch, Ghost 5. We have visual on 6 unknown aircraft. Configuration suggests advanced fighter design, possibly foreign origin. Copy, Ghost 5. You are authorized to close for identification. Rules of engagement remain weapons tight unless fired upon. Sarah watched as the unknown aircraft maintained their formation, showing no signs of turning away from restricted airspace. Their flight path would take them directly over the Nevada test site, where classified weapons research was conducted daily. Ghost 6, follow my lead, Patterson ordered. We're going to close to identification range. The two F-22s accelerated toward the unknown formation, their powerful engines pushing them to speeds that would have been unimaginable just decades before. As they closed the distance, Sarah could make out more details of the strange aircraft. They were definitely military, with hardpoints for weapons and what appeared to be advanced sensor arrays. The paint scheme was matte gray, designed to reduce radar signature, and Sarah could see no national markings of any kind. Unknown aircraft, this is United States Air Force, Patterson broadcasted on guard frequency. You are approaching restricted airspace. Identify yourself immediately and alter course to bearing 180 degrees. The response came not in words, but in action. The lead aircraft of the unknown formation suddenly broke hard left, while 2 others climbed aggressively. The remaining 3 aircraft continued straight ahead, accelerating toward the restricted zone. Overwatch, Ghost 5. Contacts are splitting formation and continuing toward restricted airspace. Request immediate guidance. Ghost 5, you are cleared to escort the aircraft away from restricted airspace. Use all necessary means short of weapons release. Sarah felt her training take over as the tactical situation rapidly evolved. The unknown aircraft were clearly testing American response capabilities, probing weaknesses and gathering intelligence. This wasn't an accidental airspace violation, this was reconnaissance in force. Ghost 6, Patterson called, I'm going after the 3 aircraft heading for the test site. You shadow the 3 that went high. Do not engage unless fired upon. Sarah banked hard right, her F-22 pulling GS that would have incapacitated an untrained pilot. Through years of physical conditioning and simulator training, she remained conscious and functional as the aircraft climbed toward the 3 contacts that had separated from the main formation. At 30,000 feet, she found herself in a deadly game of cat and mouse with aircraft that seemed to be testing her reactions and capabilities. One of the unknown fighters would make an aggressive turn toward her, only to break away at the last second when she maneuvered to counter. They were studying her, learning her flight patterns and tactical responses. Ghost 6, status report, came Patterson's voice, strained with the stress of high-G maneuvering. Ghost 5, I have 3 contacts at my altitude. They appear to be conducting surveillance rather than aggressive action. They're testing my responses to various maneuvers. Sarah's mind worked furiously as she tried to understand what she was seeing. The aircraft were clearly advanced, but their tactics suggested they were gathering intelligence rather than preparing for attack. This felt like a probe, a test to see how American forces would respond to a sophisticated threat. All aircraft, this is Overwatch. We have additional contacts approaching from the west. Count 4 more unknown aircraft, bearing 270 degrees, range 120 miles. Sarah's blood ran cold. 10 unknown aircraft was not a probe, it was the beginning of something much more serious. Ghost Flight, Overwatch. You are being reinforced. Angels 30 and 35 are launching now with full air-to-air loadouts. Sarah felt a mixture of relief and apprehension. Help was coming, but the situation was escalating beyond what she and Patterson could handle alone. The unknown aircraft were coordinated, sophisticated, and apparently part of a much larger operation. One of the aircraft she was shadowing suddenly accelerated and climbed, testing her ability to follow. Sarah pushed her throttles forward and felt the F-22 surge upward, its twin engines producing enough thrust to overcome gravity with authority. At 40,000 feet, she found herself in the thin air where only the most advanced aircraft could operate effectively. The unknown fighter leveled off and began a series of high-speed turns that would stress any aircraft and pilot to their limits. Sarah stayed with him, her hands steady on the controls as the F-22 pulled through maneuvers that would have been impossible in any other fighter. She could feel the aircraft straining at the edges of its flight envelope, could sense the delicate balance between controlled flight and catastrophic failure. "Ghost 6, you're flying into the weeds up there," Patterson warned. "Don't let them draw you into a trap." Sarah knew he was right, but something about the unknown pilot's behavior suggested he wasn't trying to trap her, he was testing her. Every maneuver was designed to push her to her limits, to see how skilled she really was. On impulse, Sarah decided to turn the tables. Instead of following the unknown aircraft's lead, she rolled inverted and pulled toward the ground, using gravity to build speed for a climbing attack. The maneuver was risky at this altitude, but it caught the unknown pilot off guard. For the first time since the encounter began, Sarah found herself in an advantageous position. The unknown aircraft was forced to react to her moves rather than dictating the engagement. "Impressive," came a voice over the radio, not Patterson or Overwatch, but someone else entirely. The transmission lasted only a second and was immediately followed by static. Sarah's eyes widened. Someone in the unknown aircraft had spoken, and they had spoken in English with what sounded like an American accent. "Ghost 5, did you copy that transmission?" "Negative, Ghost 6. "What did you hear?" Sarah hesitated. If she reported what she had heard, it would raise questions that she wasn't qualified to answer. But, if she didn't report it, she might be withholding crucial intelligence. "Ghost 5, I thought I heard a voice transmission from one of the unknowns." "Single word, possibly English." "Copy, Ghost 6. "Overwatch, did you monitor any transmissions from the unknown aircraft?" "Negative, Ghost Flight. All monitored frequencies have been clear." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. Either her radio had malfunctioned, or someone flying an unknown aircraft had communicated with her on a frequency that wasn't being monitored. The tactical situation continued to develop as the second wave of unknown aircraft approached from the west. Sarah could see them on her long-range radar, for more contacts flying in perfect formation toward the Nevada test site. "All aircraft, this is Overwatch. Be advised that Washington has elevated our alert status to DEFCON 3. All rules of engagement have been modified. You are authorized to use weapons if unknown aircraft continue to penetrate restricted airspace." Sarah felt the weight of that announcement. DEFCON 3 meant that the United States military considered this a significant threat to national security. What had started as a routine scramble was now a potential international incident. "Ghost 6, Patterson called, form up on me. We're going to escort these aircraft out of restricted airspace, one way or another." Sarah rolled her F-22 into position alongside Patterson, her mind racing through the implications of what was happening. Somewhere above the Nevada desert, American and unknown aircraft were dancing on the edge of combat, each side testing the other's resolve and capabilities. As they descended toward the main group of unknown aircraft, Sarah caught sight of the reinforcements that Overwatch had promised. Two more F-22s were climbing toward them from the south, their pilots undoubtedly as confused and concerned as she was. "Angels 30 and 35, this is Ghost 5. We have 6 unknowns at various altitudes. Be advised, these aircraft appear to have advanced capabilities and are non-responsive to radio calls." "Copy, Ghost 5. Angels 30 has the lead for intercept." Sarah watched as the tactical situation became increasingly complex. For F-22s were now converging on 10 unknown aircraft that showed no signs of leaving restricted airspace. The potential for miscommunication or accident was enormous, and the consequences of either could be catastrophic. "Ghost 6, Patterson called, stay sharp. Something about this whole situation feels wrong." Sarah knew exactly what he meant. Professional pilots didn't violate restricted airspace by accident, especially not in formation with advanced aircraft. Someone had planned this encounter, had wanted American forces to respond exactly as they were responding. The question was why, and what they planned to do next. As the 4 F-22s moved to surround the unknown aircraft, Sarah noticed something that made her blood run cold. The unknown formations were moving to bracket the American fighters, creating a tactical situation where both sides had weapons advantages. "All aircraft, this is Overwatch. Unknown aircraft are now within restricted airspace. You are authorized to use all necessary force to escort them out." Sarah's finger found the weapon selector on her control stick, switching from safe to armed. After all these years of dreaming about flying in combat, she was about to discover what it really meant to defend her country's airspace. The moment Sarah armed her weapons, the entire dynamic of the engagement changed. Her radar warning receiver began painting threat symbols across her display, indicating that multiple unknown aircraft had also moved to combat-ready status. The deadly dance in the sky above Nevada had suddenly become lethal. All aircraft, this is Overwatch. We are detecting multiple radar locks from unknown aircraft. You are cleared to engage if fired upon. Sarah's mouth went dry as she realized that 10 unknown fighters were now actively targeting 4 American F-22s. Despite the Raptors' technological advantages, those were not good odds if the situation deteriorated into actual combat. Ghost Flight, Angels 30, came the voice of the reinforcement leader. Recommend we coordinate our approach. These guys are too well organized to be casual intruders. Major Patterson's voice was tight with controlled tension. Copy, Angels 30. Ghost 6, stay close and follow my lead. We're going to try to separate one of the unknowns for individual intercept. Sarah acknowledged the order, but her tactical training was screening warnings. The unknown aircraft were maintaining perfect formation integrity while demonstrating advanced maneuvering capabilities. Trying to separate one from the group could be exactly what they wanted the Americans to attempt. Ghost 5, she called, recommend we maintain formation integrity. These pilots are too skilled to fall for basic separation tactics. Patterson hesitated. Sarah's suggestion contradicted his plan, but it also made tactical sense. He was beginning to realize that his wingmen possessed knowledge and instincts that went far beyond basic pilot training. Copy, Ghost 6. Angels 30 will maintain current formation and attempt coordinated intercept. The 4 F-22s moved into combat spread formation, each aircraft positioned to provide mutual support while maintaining individual maneuvering room. Sarah found herself flying the left flank position, responsible for covering the formation's exposed side. As they approached the unknown aircraft, Sarah studied their flight characteristics through her advanced sensors. The radar signatures were inconsistent, sometimes strong, sometimes nearly invisible. These aircraft definitely incorporated stealth technology, but the specific techniques seemed different from American approaches. Unknown aircraft, this is United States Air Force, Angels 30 broadcasted. You have violated restricted airspace. You will immediately turn to heading 180 degrees and leave this airspace, or you will be fired upon. The response came not through radio, but through action. The lead unknown aircraft suddenly accelerated and climbed while simultaneously turning toward the American formation. It was a classic aggressive maneuver, designed to force the F-22s to react defensively. Overwatch, Angels 30. Lead unknown is maneuvering aggressively toward our position. Request immediate guidance. Angels 30, you are cleared to fire warning shots if necessary to deter aggressive action. Sarah watched in fascination as the unknown pilot executed a series of maneuvers that pushed the boundaries of what she thought was possible. The aircraft pulled G-forces that should have been incapacitating while maintaining perfect control authority. Ghost 6, Patterson called, whatever those things are, they're not limited by normal human factors. Sarah's mind raced through possibilities. Advanced G-suits could allow pilots to withstand higher forces, but what she was seeing suggested capabilities beyond even the most advanced life support systems. The tactical situation suddenly exploded into chaos as 2 of the unknown aircraft broke formation and accelerated directly toward the F-22s. Sarah's threat warning systems erupted into urgent tones as targeting radars locked onto her aircraft. Multiple locks. Multiple locks, she called out, her training taking over as adrenaline flooded her system. Angels 30, engaging, came the call from the reinforcement leader as his aircraft rolled into an attack position. Sarah watched through her canopy as the lead F-22 fired 2 AIM-120 missiles at the approaching unknown aircraft. The weapons streaked through the thin air at Mach 4, their advanced guidance systems tracking targets that were maneuvering violently to avoid destruction. What happened next defied everything Sarah knew about air combat. The first unknown aircraft somehow detected the incoming missiles and began deploying countermeasures that created a blizzard of chaff and electronic interference. But, instead of simply trying to evade, the aircraft maneuvered directly toward the missiles in a head-on intercept. What the hell is he doing? Patterson yelled over the radio. Sarah watched in amazement as the unknown pilot pulled off a maneuver she had only read about in theoretical papers. He used his aircraft's stealth characteristics and electronic warfare systems to create a false targeting solution, causing the first missile to lose lock and detonate harmlessly. The second missile he defeated by turning inside its minimum engagement range, something that should have been impossible given the closing speeds involved. Angels 30, negative impact. Target is still maneuvering. Copy that. Engaging with guns. The lead F-22 close to cannon range, its 20mm Vulcan gun spinning up to firing speed. But, the unknown aircraft pilot seemed to anticipate every move, staying just outside of effective gun range while simultaneously closing distance on the American formation. Sarah suddenly realized what was happening. The unknown pilots weren't trying to destroy the F-22s, they were demonstrating capabilities. This entire engagement was a show of force, a message that whoever was flying those aircraft possessed technology and skills that rivaled or exceeded American capabilities. Ghost 5, she called to Patterson, I don't think they're trying to shoot us down. This feels like a demonstration. What are you talking about, Ghost 6? Look at their positioning. They could have fired on us multiple times, but they haven't. They're showing us what they can do. Before Patterson could respond, Sarah's threat warning system erupted with a new contact. The radar signature was massive, something much larger than a fighter aircraft was approaching from the east. All aircraft, this is Overwatch. We have a large unknown contact approaching your position. Estimated size suggests transport or bomber-class aircraft. Sarah switched her radar to long-range mode and felt her blood chill. The new contact was enormous, moving at high speed toward the combat area. As it closed distance, smaller contacts began separating from the main signature. Overwatch, Ghost 6. I'm seeing multiple small contacts separating from the large bogey. Possible paratroop drop or supply mission. Negative, Ghost 6. Unknown aircraft are maintaining altitude and speed. Contacts appear to be additional fighter-class aircraft. Sarah's mind struggled to process what she was seeing. 12 more fighter aircraft had just arrived to reinforce the 10 already in the area. 22 unknown aircraft were now operating in restricted American airspace, demonstrating capabilities that suggested a level of military technology that intelligence assessments had seriously underestimated. All aircraft, this is Overwatch. You are being reinforced by additional squadrons from Nellis and Hill Air Force Base. Do not engage unless fired upon, but be prepared for extended combat operations. The tactical situation had evolved from a simple intercept mission to a potential air battle involving dozens of aircraft. Sarah found herself at the center of what could become the largest air combat engagement since World War II. Ghost 6, Patterson called, form up tight. We need to survive until reinforcements arrive. Sarah moved her F-22 closer to Patterson's aircraft, but her eyes remained focused on the unknown formations. The new arrivals were organizing themselves with military precision, creating overlapping coverage patterns that would make any attack extremely costly for the Americans. Angels 30, this is Overwatch. Can you estimate pilot skill level of unknown aircraft? Sarah keyed her radio before Angels 30 could respond. Overwatch, Ghost 6. Unknown pilots are demonstrating exceptional skill levels. Maneuvering capabilities suggest either advanced life support systems or non-human factors. The radio fell silent for a moment as the implications of her assessment sank in. Sarah immediately regretted speaking so bluntly, but the tactical situation was too serious for diplomatic language. Copy, Ghost 6. All aircraft maintain current positions pending arrival of reinforcements. As Sarah maintained formation with the other F-22s, she found herself studying the unknown aircraft through her advanced sensors. The more she observed, the more convinced she became that something extraordinary was happening. These weren't just foreign aircraft, they represented a level of technological advancement that seemed beyond current human capabilities. One of the unknown aircraft began flying directly toward her position, close enough for visual identification. Through her canopy, Sarah could see details of the aircraft's construction. The lines were too perfect, the surfaces too smooth, the maneuvering too precise. It was as if the aircraft had been designed by a computer and built by robots. Ghost 6, you have an unknown aircraft approaching your position, Patterson warned. Copy, Ghost 5. I have visual contact. The unknown aircraft moved into loose formation beside Sarah's F-22, matching her speed and altitude with precision that would have been difficult for even experienced pilots. Through the other aircraft's canopy, she could see a figure in what appeared to be a flight suit and helmet, but something about the proportions seemed wrong. Sarah keyed her radio to guard frequency. Unknown aircraft flying formation with Ghost 6, identify yourself. For a moment, there was no response. Then, her radio crackled with a transmission that made her question everything she thought she knew about the situation. "Captain Chan," came a voice that was clearly artificial, synthesized rather than human. "You fly with exceptional skill for someone who has never seen combat." Sarah's blood turned to ice. The unknown pilot knew her name and her background. This was not a random encounter. Whoever was flying these aircraft had specific intelligence about American personnel and capabilities. "How do you know my name?" she transmitted back. "We know many things about your capabilities, Captain. Your maintenance records, your simulator training, your brother's service in Afghanistan. We have been watching." Sarah felt a mixture of fear and anger flood through her system. The fact that unknown forces had detailed intelligence about American military personnel suggested a level of penetration that had catastrophic implications for national security. "Ghost 6, who are you talking to?" Patterson demanded. Sarah hesitated, unsure how to explain what she was hearing. "Ghost 5, the unknown aircraft pilot is communicating with me. He knows my personal information." Overwatch, Ghost 5. Unknown aircraft appear to have detailed intelligence on American personnel. This is now a security breach of the highest order. Copy, Ghost 5. All aircraft prepare for immediate disengagement. You are ordered to return to base. Sarah felt her tactical instincts rebel against the retreat order. Running away would only encourage the unknown aircraft to continue their aggressive behavior. But she also understood that the situation had moved beyond simple airspace violation into something much more serious. "Captain Chen," came the artificial voice again, "we are not your enemies." This demonstration was necessary to establish communication. Communication about what? Sarah transmitted back. "About the future of human aviation. About capabilities that your species will need to survive what is coming." Sarah's mind reeled as she tried to process the implications of that statement. The voice had referred to humanity as a species, suggesting that whoever was speaking was not human. Combined with the advanced technology and impossible maneuvering capabilities, she was beginning to suspect that the situation was far beyond anything in standard military protocols. "Ghost 6, disengage immediately," Patterson ordered. "That's a direct order." Sarah looked at the unknown aircraft flying beside her, its pilot, if that was the right word, waiting for her response. She had spent her entire adult life preparing for a moment when she could serve her country in its hour of need. Now that moment had arrived, but it was nothing like what she had expected. The unknown aircraft began pulling away from her position, rejoining its formation as the entire group of intruders prepared to depart. Sarah realized that this encounter was ending, but it was also just the beginning of something much larger. "All aircraft, this is Overwatch. Unknown aircraft are departing restricted airspace. Maintain surveillance but do not pursue." Sarah watched as 22 advanced aircraft disappeared into the Nevada sky as quickly as they had appeared, leaving behind only questions and implications that would change everything about how America viewed its place in the universe. The flight back to Nellis Air Force Base took place in heavy silence, broken only by necessary radio communications. Sarah's mind churned through everything that had happened, trying to reconcile the impossible with her training and experience. The F-22 flew itself as she processed the encounter, its autopilot systems maintaining formation while she struggled with implications that seemed to challenge the fundamental assumptions of human civilization. "Ghost Flight, this is Tower. You are cleared for approach runway 21 left. Emergency vehicles are standing by as precautionary measure." Sarah could see the base spreading out below them as they descended through the crystal-clear desert air. Fire trucks and ambulances were positioned along the runway, their crews ready for any possibility. The sight reminded her that what had just happened wasn't a training exercise or simulation, it had been real, with real consequences that were only beginning to unfold. As she lowered the landing gear and felt the F-22 settle into its landing configuration, Sarah caught sight of dozens of vehicles surrounding the flight line. Military police, intelligence personnel, and officials she didn't recognize were waiting for their return. Whatever had happened over the Nevada test site, it had triggered the highest levels of response. "Ghost 6, nice flying up there," Patterson radioed as they taxied toward the parking area. "We need to talk after debriefing." Sarah nodded, though she knew Patterson couldn't see the gesture. She had a feeling that debriefing was going to be unlike anything in her experience, and that her life was about to change in ways she couldn't begin to imagine. The moment her engines spun down, the F-22 was surrounded by security personnel. Sarah went through her shutdown procedures with mechanical precision, her hands moving across familiar switches while her mind remained focused on the impossible conversation she had experienced at 40,000 feet. "Captain Chen," called a voice from below the aircraft. Sarah looked down to see Lieutenant Colonel Johnson approaching with two men in civilian clothes. "Come down here immediately. We need to talk." Sarah climbed down from the cockpit, her legs shaky from adrenaline and the profound emotional weight of what had just occurred. After 7 years of dreaming about flying in combat, she had finally gotten her chance, but the enemy had turned out to be something beyond her wildest imagination. "Captain, these gentlemen are from the Defense Intelligence Agency," Johnson said, indicating the two civilians. "They have some questions about your encounter with the unknown aircraft." The older of the two men stepped forward, his gray hair and weathered face suggesting decades of experience with military matters. "Captain Chen, I'm Director Harrison. We need to know exactly what the unknown pilot said to you." Sarah looked around at the circle of officials and security personnel surrounding them. "Sir, shouldn't this conversation take place in a secure environment?" "Captain, this is as secure as it gets right now," Harrison replied grimly. "The entire base is under lockdown until we understand what just happened. Now, what did the unknown pilot tell you?" Sarah took a deep breath and began recounting the conversation, word for word as best she could remember. The faces around her grew increasingly serious as she described the artificial voice, the detailed knowledge of her personal information, and the references to humanity as a species. "You're certain the voice was artificially generated?" asked the second DIA officer. "Yes, sir. It was clearly synthesized, not human vocal cords." Harrison exchanged a meaningful look with his colleague before turning back to Sarah. "Captain, what you experienced today is classified at the highest levels of government. You will not discuss these events with anyone who doesn't have specific clearance, including your fellow pilots." "I understand, sir." "I'm not sure you do," Harrison said quietly. "What happened today may represent first contact between humanity and a non-human intelligence. The implications are so significant that they could destabilize governments and societies around the world." Sarah felt the ground shift beneath her feet as the full weight of that statement hit her. Everything she had witnessed, the impossible maneuvers, the advanced technology, the artificial voice, suddenly made sense in a context that was both thrilling and terrifying. "Sir, are you saying those were extraterrestrial aircraft?" "We don't know what they were, Captain. But we know they demonstrated technology that is decades beyond our current capabilities. We also know that they specifically sought to communicate with you." Major Patterson approached the group, having completed his own initial debriefing. His face was pale, and Sarah could see that he was struggling with the same impossible realities that were overwhelming her. "Captain Chen," he said formally, "I owe you an apology. Your flying today was exceptional. I've never seen anyone adapt to combat conditions so quickly." "Thank you, sir." Harrison interrupted the conversation. "Major Patterson, what's your assessment of Captain Chen's capabilities as a pilot?" Patterson looked surprised by the question but answered without hesitation. "Sir, Captain Chen flew like she had years of combat experience. Her tactical instincts were excellent, and her aircraft handling was as good as any pilot I've flown with." "Even though this was her first time in an F-22? "Sir, if I hadn't known better, I would have assumed she was one of our most experienced pilots." Harrison nodded thoughtfully. "Captain Chen, we're going to need you to remain available for extended debriefings over the next several days. Your unique perspective on today's events makes you a crucial asset in understanding what happened." Sarah realized that her life had just taken a dramatic turn. The maintenance officer who had spent 7 years working in obscurity was suddenly at the center of what might be the most important event in human history. "Sir, what about my regular duties?" "My maintenance section is being temporarily reassigned," Johnson interrupted. "Sarah, you're no longer a maintenance officer. Effective immediately, you're being transferred to a classified unit that's being formed to investigate today's events." Sarah felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension. After so many years of watching other people live her dreams, she was finally being given the opportunity to serve at the highest levels. But the circumstances were unlike anything she could have imagined. Over the next several hours, Sarah found herself in a series of increasingly surreal debriefings. Intelligence analysts questioned her about every detail of the encounter, linguists analyzed the artificial voice communication, and technology experts tried to understand the implications of what she had observed. During a brief break between sessions, she found herself alone in a secure conference room, staring out the window at the F-22s that were now being examined by teams of technicians. Her aircraft was surrounded by specialists checking for any signs of damage or foreign technology that might have been transferred during the close formation flying. "Overwhelming, isn't it?" came a voice from behind her. Sarah turned to see Director Harrison entering the room with a cup of coffee and a thick folder of documents. He looked as tired as she felt, but his eyes remained alert and focused. "Sir, I keep thinking this has to be some kind of elaborate exercise or test," Sarah said. "I wish it were, Captain. But the radar data, the communications intercepts, and the testimony from multiple witnesses all confirmed that what happened today was real." Harrison sat down across from her and opened the folder. "Captain, I'm going to share some information with you that very few people in the government know. What happened today was not the first contact between our forces and unknown aircraft." Sarah's eyes widened. "Sir? Over the past 18 months, we've had sporadic encounters with aircraft demonstrating advanced capabilities. But they were always brief, and the unknown pilots never attempted communication. Today was different." "Different how?" "They specifically requested to communicate with you. By name." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. "That's impossible, sir. How could they know who I was?" "We don't know, Captain." "But they demonstrated detailed knowledge not just of your identity, but of your background, your family, and your service record. That suggests a level of intelligence gathering that has profound implications for national security." Harrison pulled out a photograph from the folder and placed it on the table between them. It showed an aircraft that looked similar to what Sarah had encountered, but the image quality suggested it had been taken from a great distance. This photograph was taken 6 months ago over the Pacific Ocean. The aircraft disappeared from radar immediately after this image was captured. Sarah studied the photograph, noting the same impossible smooth lines and perfect proportions she had observed during the encounter. "Sir, if these contacts have been going on for months, why wasn't I briefed?" "Because until today, you were a maintenance officer with no need to know. But your performance today, combined with the fact that the unknown intelligence specifically sought to communicate with you, changes everything." Harrison leaned forward, his expression serious. "Captain, I'm going to be direct with you. We believe that you may be crucial to understanding what these entities want and why they've made contact. That makes you one of the most important people in the United States military." The weight of that responsibility settled on Sarah's shoulders like a physical presence. She thought about her brother David, about his courage in Afghanistan, about his willingness to sacrifice everything for something greater than himself. Now she was being asked to serve in a way that might be even more important than anything he had done. "Sir, what exactly are you asking me to do?" "We're forming a joint task force to investigate these encounters and prepare for future contact. You would be the lead pilot and primary interface with any unknown aircraft we encounter. Your job would be to learn everything we can about their capabilities, intentions, and technology." Sarah looked out the window again at the F-22s sitting on the flight line. Just this morning, her greatest ambition had been to fly one of those aircraft in combat. Now she was being offered the chance to pilot humanity's first steps into a larger universe. "Captain," Harrison continued, "I need to be honest about the risks. We don't know what we're dealing with, and future encounters could be dangerous. We also don't know how the public would react if this information became widespread. You would be at the center of events that could reshape human civilization." Sarah thought about her years of quiet service, maintaining aircraft while dreaming of flying them. She thought about all the maintenance logs she had filled out, all the routine inspections she had conducted, all the times she had watched other pilots take off for missions while she remained on the ground. "Sir, I spent 7 years preparing for the chance to serve my country as a pilot. I never imagined it would be in circumstances like these, but I'm ready." Harrison smiled for the first time since she had met him. "Captain, I was hoping you would say that. Your country needs you more than you know." As the sun set over the Nevada desert, Sarah found herself standing beside an F-22 Raptor, no longer invisible in the right ways or visible in the wrong ones. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new responsibilities, and the possibility of contact with intelligences that might hold the keys to humanity's future among the stars. She placed her hand on the aircraft's wing, feeling the smooth carbon fiber composite that represented the pinnacle of human aviation technology. Somewhere in the vast desert sky, other aircraft with even more advanced capabilities were waiting for her return. Captain Sarah Chan, maintenance officer turned combat pilot, was ready to take humanity's next steps into the unknown. The quiet woman who had spent years in the background was about to become one of the most important people on Earth, bridging the gap between human limitations and infinite possibilities. Her brother David would have been proud.